Hello folks, it's me again. Today we're talking about Exodus chapters 16 through 19. What we have here in this section is two more stories dealing with the Israelites grumbling because of a lack of elements vital to their survival in the desert. And I hope you noticed that the stories are not just about the murmuring of God's people, but they are also about God's care for them. They still have not learned that even though they are in a desert with no food or water, God is above their circumstances. And God uses their grumbling as an occasion not to punish His people, but to teach them something about Himself. So, here we are at Exodus chapter 16, and this chapter opens with the Israelites complaining once again. Only a mere month has passed since their departure from Egypt. They had just seen God's care for them in giving them water, and now they are complaining about the lack of food. And I want you to notice the absurd charge they make against their leaders here in verse 3, where the writer says, "You have brought us out into this desert to kill us with hunger." That was the charge that Israel leveled against Moses, against her leaders, and against God. And, only the most calloused heart or the most stupid mind could conceive of such a ridiculous charge. And perhaps the only thing more surprising is the response of God here in this text. They say, "You've brought us out here to kill us and to starve us to death." And God's response is, rather than punishing them, He rains down bread from heaven. If any need convincing of the grace of God in the Old Testament, they need only to look here, don't you think? Moses then informs the people that their real complaint is not against him and their leaders, it's against God. And He is the one that they are distrusting and even mocking by their display of ingratitude. Then we have another episode of rebellion and complaining in chapter 17. Israel comes to Rephidim, where they quarrel with Moses. "Give us water to drink," they say. Again, we are reminded of the absurdity of Israel's lack of trust in God. How many times do they need to see God work before they understand that God will take care of them? They still do not see that God has their best interests in mind, that He has moved mightily from the time of the patriarchs to come to this moment, and that He will not let a little thing like a water supply or a lack of water stand in their way. We might wonder why God puts up with Israel and her murmuring. Well, He puts up with it because He has the full picture in mind, doesn't He? His promises to the patriarchs will not be thwarted by anyone, neither by Pharaoh nor even by the Israelites themselves. Now, we might pause just here to apply the text thus far. Number one, we can be assured that God will keep His promises, and that He will care for and take care of His children even in the hostile desert places of their lives. Our trust in Him then is legitimate. Our trust in His care of us is legitimate. And number two, we ought not complain against Him or about our circumstances, right? Because God will take care of us. We can trust Him to meet our every need. Finally, I want to say a word about Jethro in Exodus chapter 18. We might wonder why this story is even placed here in our text. Perhaps it is that chapter 18 is a fitting contrast to chapter 17. Israel battles the Amalekites in chapter 17, but they receive a friendly greeting by the Midianites in chapter 18. So there's the contrast. And I want you to notice what Jethro states in verse 11. This is chapter 17 and verse 11. He says, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because He has delivered the people from the Egyptians when they dealt arrogantly with them." Although neither the Egyptians nor the Amalekites get it, Jethro, the Midianite, has learned the lesson of the Exodus. And that lesson is, the Lord is greater than all other gods. And then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, encourages him to divide the labor, or else, he says, you will surely wear yourself out, both you and these people with you, for the task is too heavy for you. You can't do it alone. Verse 18. Get some help, is Jethro's advice to Moses. Of course, this is sound advice for every church leader, don't you think? We should look for those who fear God, are trustworthy, and are people of character, and who can and will share the load of ministry. Now, in chapter 19, God is going to prepare his people to receive the law. They must purify themselves and prepare their hearts to hear what God expects of them. Hey, God is the one who rescued Israel from Egypt, and in the giving of the law, he is about to make a more complete introduction of himself to his children. He's about to tell them what he is like, what he values, and how he wants them to live as his followers. And for that, we'll wait for our discussion of Exodus chapter 20. God bless you today.